So good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're dialing in from today. Welcome to the webinar, Reimagining Your Cyber Workforce, the Talent Shift to Alternative Pathways. I'm Sia Kibritzis. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at WithYouWithMe. I'd first like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'm dialing in from Sydney, the land of the Gadigal people, and I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. The session is being recorded and we will be sharing the recording with you afterwards, as well as those who registered today but were unable to join us live. And if you do have a question throughout, please feel free to drop it into the chat and we can come to that at the end of the panel discussion. Now, before we do get into that panel, I know everyone's very excited. We have some great panelists. I did just want to share a little bit of background to help you understand why WithYouWithMe has brought together these brilliant cyber leaders for this important conversation. So I wanted to share a bit about our past. For those of you who don't know us, WithYouWithMe started as a social impact company founded by veterans who, on retiring from military service, were shocked at how difficult it was for military personnel to have their exceptional capabilities recognised in the corporate world. So they gave themselves a mission to eradicate underemployment and to create skills-based pathways for anyone to be able to step into meaningful work. To help do this, we developed a unique technology and a synthetic validity algorithm, which is a fancy way of saying essentially we're able to identify individuals with nothing but potential, determine the skills they will excel at based off their unique cognitive markers and learning preferences, and then train them to proficiency in rapid periods and place them into complex roles like cybersecurity, data science, and software development. This capability, the ability to understand potential, basically lets us predict someone's likelihood of success in a role, even if they have no traditional experience or proof of capability. We call it skill potential, and it's changed the way the world sees more than 100,000 people. And we know the model works. These individuals aren't just getting jobs, they're succeeding. We've deployed them into some of the world's largest and most complex organizations, and these individuals are thriving. Our latest data actually shows that 94% of these individuals remain in these positions more than 12 months after starting in the role. And in the instance of Monash University, who you'll hear from shortly, it's a 100% retention rate. So it's not a social experiment, it's proof of performance. But while we are really proud of what we've built, and while it's a great program for getting untapped talent into work, that's not what brings me here today. I'm here because cybersecurity is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world, in Australia, the broader Asia Pacific region, and we are facing some pretty serious workforce challenges. There are, depending on the organisation and the area, thousands of unfilled cyber roles. Threats are evolving, attack surfaces are expanding, and our ability to defend critical systems, national infrastructure, and sensitive data is being outpaced by a shortage of skilled people. So essentially, the demand we know is massive, but the pipeline is just too narrow. Many organisations still rely on a traditional graduate program and use of on-paper experience to solve this problem, while overlooking the alternative talent pools that may have the aptitude, the mindset, and the drive to succeed. So people like veterans, career changers, parents returning to work, and others who don't simply fit that expected profile of a cyber professional. But the good news is the people in this virtual room can do something about this, which is why we've brought this panel together today. These are leaders who are not just talking about the problem, but they're actually solving it in some pretty interesting and innovative ways. And so to lead the conversation for us today, I would like to introduce our facilitator, a very well-known name in the cyber sector, Bridget Gray. Bridget has been working alongside some of the world's leading CISOs in the Asia Pacific, United Kingdom, and North America for the better part of the past 2 decades, helping them to build teams that are fit for purpose and future-proof, and obviously some of the people you see here on the call today as well. So on that note, I'll pass it over to you, Bridget.
Thanks, Sia. I appreciate that. I also appreciate that you say 2 decades, not 3. So thank you. It's actually quite a nice thing. Yeah, look, I feel really privileged to be here today to have this conversation. I think it's an incredibly important one. WithYouWithMe, I have been close to for over 5 years now. I came across the model a long time ago when thinking about building out capability for my clients. And yeah, I've always thought it's incredibly exciting watching their journey. The last few years, I've certainly worked a lot closer with the team. In fact, not just in Australia, which is obviously close to my heart, but Sia and I have been out to the US deploying the model and sharing our knowledge and insights with some of the market leaders there. So we've been out there. It's been really exciting, actually. Their appetite for change in the US has been refreshing around how they can rethink their cyber capability. But really today is about more local talent markets and what we can do to support the cyber talent skill area. Although we do have a regional focus today because we have a panelist in from Singapore, which makes it super exciting. And I think it's important to think about this topic because when we think about cyber skills and cyber talent, it is much more than just thinking about putting people into a role. It is about doing the right thing and making sure that people are in roles at which they'll excel at and really, really enjoy. So I think that the way that WithYouWithMe's model addresses the market is incredibly compelling. So today we're going to have a bit of an interactive discussion talking to the panelists about their experience. We've got people from a variety of different backgrounds, but all that are not just talking about this, ever-growing skill gap in cybersecurity, but are actually taking actions on being more innovative and forward-thinking and leaning into the solution as opposed to hearing about the problem, which I'm sure many of us already do hear quite a bit about. So do pop your questions into the chat. We're going to try and address as many of them as we can. We've got on the panel discussion today, we've got Dan Maslin. Dan is actually the group CISO for Monash University. He leads the global cyber risk and resilience strategy. He's highly experienced. He's worked all over the globe. He has won many awards in security. He also sits on the ASA board as a member and is an adjunct associate professor at Deakin University. So we're really delighted to have Dan here today. As I mentioned, we do have a panelist that's joined us from Singapore, Nikki Dobel. Nikki is a principal advisor for KPMG. She's really looking at workforce transformation, but her background is as a CIO. She's highly credentialized personally within cybersecurity and takes a very human-centered approach, which I thought would be particularly interesting for the audience today. We also have Andrew Webster joining us. He's a global CISO for BlueScope. Andrew is really interesting. He's held a lot of senior executive security positions throughout his career, but he's worked across financial services, utilities, law enforcement, various different areas that have different demands when we look at it under the lens of security. He recently won the CSO 30 award, which I'm sure he loves me saying, but I think it's quite exciting because that's a new award that we're seeing here in Australia for security leaders. And he really is well known in the CISO community here in Australia for embracing inclusive workforces and driving high performance through having the right people in the right roles. And we have Ty. Ty Kingy is actually working at Monash University. He's a cyber and risk compliance analyst. He's a fantastic example of a lot of the themes that we're looking at today. He is a WithYouWithMe alumnus, former infantry soldier serving the Australian Army for 12 years, and then has reskilled into cybersecurity. I think that it's really exciting to see real time and understand more how lifelong learning and transferable skills and really career reinvention can happen in this space. So we've got a fantastic representation, I think, here of the security executive and talent market. So I might just kick off with some questions. Andrew, I might start with you if that's okay. I just wanted to ask you a bit about what you're seeing. I know from our discussions and from the industry that you are really well plugged into the CISO network here in Australia. Are you able to just share with us some of the themes that you're seeing around skills gaps, perhaps historically and maybe even looking forwards?
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. Glad to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. So as you said, I've been in different industries, so I'm going to use the variety of that experience to answer the questions that I am not just talking on behalf of the role that I'm in now. It's changed over time. So generally when we started with security people many, many years ago, they were network engineering types and you were IT and you transitioned across. There's not enough of those. So that's where this gap comes from, right? We don't have enough coming through in Australia, and we don't have enough coming through the workforce and the STEM ways to move into the computer engineering. And a lot of people that are doing it only really want, let's call them the sexy roles. And actually, there's a whole heap of roles which are actually really cool and will get you to those roles, but you might have to start there first.
Can you give us an example of that? Because I think that's an interesting one, because I do get people say they want to be a certain role. Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the big ones is that I've never seen so many data scientists turn up by just changing their title and not really data scientists. And I don't mean to be offensive on that. It's just that, you know, what is the skill set required to be a data scientist? How do you then take being a data scientist to turn that to a security type role? And, you know, I've seen this gap right now. This is a now thing. So we need people who can take AI, and you know the wording that we've been using is prompt engineers. We need prompt engineers, people that can ask AI the right questions in the right way and get the best answers possible. We know that the bad guys are using AI. We're not quite ready to respond because we don't have the skill sets to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want a couple of other ones which are sort of, you know, on the tip of the tongue?
I would be keen to like understand where you think, yeah, like what do you think, where do you think the demand is going to come from in the next sort of 12 months or 24 months? Like if you think about that, where can you foresee the trend going?
Well, I can certainly see that now not being just on the finance side or when I used to work for IBM on the tech side, there is so much need in the operational technology security side. And it's a huge untapped market. And generally those people are not security people that are doing the OT works. They're actually OT engineers who are designed to look after their PLCs or their MES systems, or that's the manufacturing engineering systems. But we don't really have OT security specialists to put the security layer across that. So it's quite a,
complex.
You know, I can see it's complex and it's, OT seems old, but actually OT is how everything is made. So it's a huge opportunity for people that are willing to get that skill set.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It feels like, as we were saying the other day, what is old is new again. Like it's funny how technology does go through these cycles. No, thank you for that. We'll come back to a couple of those themes for sure. Dan, I'm really keen to move across and just ask you a question. When you've looked at, I guess, addressing the talent issues that you've faced in your roles, and not just presently, but over your career, what sort of innovative processes have you applied, or, you know, where have you sought to look for alternate pathways?
Yeah, I think I've been doing this role not just at Monash but elsewhere for about 10 years now, and I realised pretty quickly 10 years ago that really nobody has 5 or 10 years experience in cybersecurity. It's pretty rare. So my approach has always been taking a look at the skills that are required in the roles, as opposed to looking at job titles. So that might be technical skills, but it might be more approaches. So the way that people approach problems, the enthusiasm, the want of learning and continuous learning and development. And so I guess on the formal side, in my last couple of roles within the team, we've always mapped our roles against a framework, whether that's like a NIST or a Sophia framework. So we understand the actual skills that we want, as opposed to somebody that's had a similar job title before. So I guess that's our approach. I guess more recently at Monash, talent retention and talent attraction has been a big focus for me and my leadership team. And the way that we approach that, we've got a framework that we built internally. One of those frameworks is one of the streams in that framework, is unique sources of talent. So we're very lucky, very fortunate that we are a university. We have a lot of generally young, but not always young, graduates that we can access internally. So we have a program where we bring students through the team as staff members, so they are part of the team. But we've also the unique path that we use externally is WithYouWithMe. So we have had over half a dozen. I think we're up to about 8 or 9. So I think Ty might be the 9th that's come through the Monash teams now. And we've got very high retention rates. So we are always looking for probably the enthusiasm, the transferable skills, the match within the team, which I think actually WithYouWithMe does really well, matching both the candidate with the team. So it's looking at both sides of the equation. But yeah, so back to the principles is that we don't look for somebody that's been doing the role for 5 or 10 years. They generally don't exist. There's very few people that have had a similar job title in the cyberspace. Even if we look back 3 or 4 years, most of our roles that we have now didn't even exist back then. It's very fast moving.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. It's refreshing to hear those those approaches in action for sure, Dan. And I am going to go to Ty in a minute, but I'm going to just quickly ask Nikki, because we've obviously got her joining from Singapore. And as I mentioned, she does a lot of work within culture and human-centered design with that, lens of cybersecurity and transformation. Nikki, what sort of things do you think you could add to this sort of skills lens that we're talking about today and shortage? Oh, I think you've got. It always does that.
I listened before when everyone told me to put myself on mute. Gosh, I'm flashing back to 2020 right now. Look, I think what's happening, and it's going to be very similar to what Andrew and particularly Dan has said, but for Singapore, they're solving that problem on a national scale. So if we remember that Singapore is actually quite a young nation, it's only, I think it celebrates its 60th birthday this year. So they're incredibly focused on making sure that their organisations and their citizen talent is globally competitive. And how they're doing that is not through traditional career paths and advising their students and people to do these degrees or particular degrees. It's incredibly skills-led. And they have a national framework, which I encourage everyone to go and have a look. It's called the Skills Framework or Workforce SG. And it's available on the internet, and they break down by sector, and then with the sector, the role, yeah? And this is where traditionally you would say, oh, you need this many years experience, or you need this degree, but they break down the role into skill sets. And then of those skill sets, they say this is the proficiency that you need within that skill set, because we don't need everybody at excellent for a particular role, but you might have particular skills that do need to be excellent, and others might just need to be working model. And then again, underneath that, they have a number of skills that are transferable. So that critical thinking that Dan was talking about, these are the skills that you might need within that role, but you might have accumulated those skills or experience in any other career path. So they actively encourage this mindset of lifelong learning with their citizens. They actively encourage people to make career changes, mid-life, and they encourage them and subsidise their training to do that. And then when they've got that breakdown of skills, they then focus on micro-credentialing. So if you're looking at a skill that you want to go into, they don't say go and do that degree or go and study 6 months to get that tech cert. They go, you look at that skill and you think, okay, I'm at a level 2, I need to be at a level 5. And then you can get a subsidised training course to go and do a micro-credential in those skill sets to get you up to the level that it does. So it really breaks it down. So that makes it chunkable learning path and career progression for people. But for employers, it makes recruitment laser focused, because you're not looking for people that have got 5 years. You're looking for particular skill sets and competencies within a particular skill set. And then it also means you've got talent mobility, because instead of a function saying I need engineers or I need this, you're looking at how the organisation has skills across the organisation and what that organisation's skills are lacking, and who can move from different roles, who can move from legal into privacy, or you know, actuarial into like a data or something. So you're tackling the problem in a similar way to everybody else is, but they're just doing it on a much larger scale. So I definitely check that out. There's lots of, and it shows trends across years of skills and things as well. So if you're looking at skills led, they're doing a great example of doing that. And we're using it with other governments in region and the Middle East as well. Like it's world standard.
Great. No, thank you. No, that's super interesting. And I think while you're talking about career pivots and lifelong learning, it would be great, Ty, to hear from you. I know, well, you're kind of actually in action, that what we're talking about here, because you've made a major career pivot. Can you maybe share with us a little bit around how you decided to move into cyber and what that journey was like for you?
Yeah, sure. I'll caveat this by saying that before I actually left the military, I knew absolutely nothing about IT, cybersecurity at all. And it was through discussions with a few people that actually work in the industry that I was able to get an understanding of the industry itself, what the work looks like. And I found a kind of a comparable relationship between defence and cybersecurity, in that they both essentially safeguard critical assets and resources. So that to me gave me purpose. So, you know, coming from a military background, I pretty much wanted to be a part of, you know, Australia's defence and things like that. And the transition to cybersecurity is kind of me still maintaining that purpose, just in a different community through, you know, protecting spam, for example. That's a something that's really hitting a lot of people right now, and I can see that, you know, in this field we can make a difference, and that's really what kind of led me into a cybersecurity career.
Great. No, thank you for that. And how has the journey been for you, like within Monash and what have you? You've got to be careful because obviously Dan's here. No, I'm joking. But just like, how has it been? Like, have you, you know, felt comfortable through that journey? Absolutely.
Absolutely comfortable. So with the skills that I got through WithYouWithMe, I was able to get an IT career first, which spanned for about a year before I was able to transition over into the Monash cybersecurity team. And it's been an amazing journey. They've been really, really supportive throughout my time there so far, and it's actually been really, really great having that kind of support. That it's more a, hey, we've got an issue. How would you look at this? And I'd explain, which has actually been awesome, because the team is like, that's great, consider this as well. And it not only helps me feel like I'm in the right place, but it helps me understand the bigger picture and how other thought processes can lead to, you know, safeguarding the university's assets.
Great. No, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. That's really good. I mean, I think it'd be good, Dan, just to, because I just want to loop back to hearing what Ty says, because obviously I quite often are working on CISO appointments and what have you, and that translation piece between non-traditional backgrounds and more traditional jobs that we're recruiting for. How do you go about evaluating those candidates against the framework that you name?
Yeah, so it's not dissimilar to how we approach what we call our student incubator program, which is where we bring through students as well, where they may not have done the same role before, or highly likely they haven't done the role before. So I guess we're looking for people's approach, their transferable skills, their life experience. I think Nikki touched on it before. There's plenty of transferable skills that aren't technical. I guess what we're seeing and the feedback from my team and from Ty's manager, for example, is that the psychometric testing that happens on both sides of the equation through WithYouWithMe, when we see the candidates land, it's like they've been there for months already. Like it's a really, really good match between the candidate, the team, and the job activities. So I think that's like a really good approach, which takes the technical skill out of it. And I guess once we go through the interviews as well, we're looking for the enthusiasm. You know, where do you want to get to? How do you want to get there? What do you think about learning? How are you approaching things? So it's a different discussion as opposed to tell me about the last organisation where you were doing the same role as you've applied for. So it's just it's a different take on the discussion. But like I said, we're pretty comfortable with that discussion because we do it through different programs that we have.
But the structure is important, as you're saying, like so that you're actually, mapping the, okay, no, thank you. No, that's really helpful because I think that is still a really big challenge globally in technology and cyber. Really, is that translation piece and being more skills focused independently. So no,
it is, and we we've got veterans, but we've also got those that have transitioned from. We've got ex-journalists in the team, ex-lawyers, people that have come from the healthcare industry. Like there's a whole broad spectrum of industries they've come from, but also other IT roles. We've got a lot that have come from service desk and different areas as well that have transitioned into the cyber team. So it's unlimited. Yeah, that's
great. And I think we're all going to be continually reskilling now, aren't we? So it's good that we understand what's given the way that everything's happening. So thank you. I wouldn't mind, Andrew, just before we open out to more sort of interactive, but just I know you and I have spoken, it's just that we've spoken here a bit about diversity of perspective. I mean, Ty certainly was referencing the fact that, he had a voice and, people listen but it's interactive. So it's sort of an opinion, but one that, one that you take a wider point of view. How do you tend to look at inclusion in the teams and that you build and what sort of value would you say is the main value that inclusive security teams bring to you?
Yeah, I really value the fact of different perspectives. I believe that a good outcome can come from anywhere in the team. A good idea is not specific to management or people that have had years of experience. It could come from anywhere. So when I'm looking for this diversity, I'd rather hire for attitude and aptitude over solely technical type skill sets. Similar to what Ty said, I think one of the things that draws people into our industry, it's the esprit de corps, or basically that mission. It's about us versus them, and who's the us? The us is all the good guys and girls on one side of the fence versus them, who are the bad ones. So we know who our enemy is. So with that diversity, and we had this discussion, like what was an example, and Dan just mentioned a whole bunch of good ones of people who've come from different industries across. I've had several executive assistants move into cyber without necessarily cyber skills in it. And why does it work? Why their thought pattern is that they've seen quite a lot at the high level. They've seen what their executive has gone through in regards to making decisions and everything. So EAs have this management capability. They're generally incredibly collaborative. Most EAs, well, in fact, you can barely be an executive assistant or a personal assistant without being trustworthy. And they've got an attention to detail. And, they generally can work on not very clear instructions, which is part of our industry. So I've had great success, and several executive assistants have turned into incredible analysts and then moved off into different areas depending on what drew them. So whether it be governance, risk and compliance, whether it be identity, whether it be security operations center, whether it be engineering or architecture, but they had the right attitude and aptitude to come across, and that diversity of their thought and the way they think about things isn't what a technical person's growth is, but it really helps in making good decisions.
Great. No, that's true. Thank you. And Nikki, I know a lot of the work that you've been doing in recent times has involved, workforce transformation, and I guess culture is a big piece that you look at. What sort of interesting wisdom nuggets can you offer us around sort of security or what have you? What is sort of supportive of a good security environment culturally?
Look, so I look at transformation across an enterprise, not necessarily a function. So from a security point of view, I know that there's, the shift left, I always think it's shift right. Like, you need to put the ownership onto the other C-suite. I'm a big believer of that. Gives them more responsibility, KPIs and ownership of making the organisation secure. I think moving it to be less governance based and more of a security culture, I think, is the next trend, because we can't keep throwing money at technology. We can't keep with necessarily the traditional ways, especially with how AI is getting very good at social engineering and deepfakes and whatnot. So we're going to have to move to how do we create that security culture across, which then means you're bringing in psychology, behavioural science, all these other kind of soft skills or humanities skills that people would have dismissed before from a technology function. I think that's going to start embracing that as we start to look more on how do we create a culture rather than just solve everything with training and exercises.
Yeah, no, thank you. What other insights do the panel have to share with us, do you think, around things that they've felt that have worked, that have perhaps been a bit more innovative in the way in which they've gone about it? I think, is it anyone got anything to offer there that they've? No? All right.
I'll have a go.
Go then.
So I like Nikki. By the way, I clapped for you, Nikki, when you said that, let's get the C-suite to take ownership.
Yes. Oh my God. I could talk for ages on that.
I think adjacencies are really important for getting people in. So you might not have thought of cyber as your career, but I had a lawyer at one of the places I worked at, and he started doing all of our security clauses in all of the contracts. And then he started getting very interested in these clauses and why we were asking for them, and the right to audit and, step-in rights and all of these things, which he's like, why would you do that? And it was because we've got this thing we have to do. And, I'm pleased to say he moved on, and now he actually is a security expert. And I think he's a deputy CISO, is what he's at right now. But it was that adjacency. I mean, legal, we deal with so much legal work because of incidents, investigations. We have to do litigation holds. If you're in that DFIR space, so digital forensics investigations and response, actually people with legal brains and knowledge and capability. One of my great friends, he's at Atlassian now, and he was a lawyer by trade, and then he ended up doing security application and testing for, and running teams doing that. But his lawyer brain came in really handy when we were doing the contracts and commercials.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, I think you're right. Absolutely. And I think we'll see more of that with how, we're talking about it being everybody's problem, isn't it? As opposed to that one person that's leading that function. I know that you've sort of referenced that it's been, quite a positive transition for you, but is there anything that you'd be able to share to, I guess, people out there that are looking to either upskill, their current skill set or reskilling to cyber? Like, is there any advice that you think you'd be able to offer?
Any advice that I give for anyone that kind of want to go through and do what I did is to cast your net wide. the amount of resources out there that you can learn from are vast. In saying that, you need to kind of be careful about who you're getting your source information from. So WithYouWithMe's cyber pathway, just for me personally, was really quite good because it was individual based learning, and I was able to pretty much run it at my own time, and it kind of really reinforced my knowledge going through that process. But as well as that, I'm really intrinsically motivated. So, you know, the best thing for most defence people is to create that plan of attack, to go through, see what check marks you want to hit, and kind of see where you want your own pathway to go. There's definitely another one that you can reach out to almost any other veteran that I've reached out to that's gone through a similar process, was so forthcoming with information. It was actually quite a testament to the veteran community.
Great. No, thank you. No, I think that you're right. It's not, you don't have to know all the answers, do you, when you go on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it probably is changing as we're going. No, thank you for that. And did anyone else on the panel have any predictions around where they think there will be pain within sort of skill shortages, like where they think that there will be the most gaps in the local market?
I'm happy to jump in. I think one of the downfalls of the industry is expecting all of the cyber type skills to sit within the cyber team. And so I think, you know, within a broader team, and Andrew gave some good examples there around commercial teams and other teams as well, doing elements of security. And it goes back to that well overused phrase of security is everyone's responsibility, but it is. And I think, you know, assuming that all of the cyber skills and all of the accountability sits within the cyber team is a big trap. So I think it's about getting the whole workforce cyber literate and that sort of shared accountability model as well.
And is there any ways that you've seen that be more effective? Like, do you feel it's down to transparency and communication? Like, how do you feel you've approached sort of educating businesses you've worked within?
So I guess in the organisations I've worked in, control, the CISO doesn't own the vast majority of controls in the organisation from a risk management perspective. They are decentralised. They sit within commercial teams, finance teams, HR teams. So I guess from the top level, they're accountable for those controls. Of course, we will help them and provide consultation around that. But I think that's a key driver from the top. That's a good approach that I've seen.
Thank you.
I think if you're looking for actual, you know, things which I find difficult and which are getting harder is encryption. So getting experts who know hardware security modules and how to do that, it's a really specific skill set. It's a very tiny circle, even inside the security world, and with quantum coming through and those things. And so when you think encryption, what are we talking about? We're talking about certificates. You'd be surprised at how much of the universe we live in on the internet is run by certificates. That's how we do HTTPS for websites. I think there's going to be a point where, and you know, and we've also got the Bitcoins and, you know, all of those things. So there is going to be this gap of the people that know, and then there's the people that think they know, and then there's the people that will say they know but don't. And so I think there is a specific skill set there that I'm not sure what level, you know, you'll get it mainly at big, usually large corporations worry about that kind of stuff. But, you know, it is something, and it's a very small lot of people. I kept hiring the same people just at different companies to do that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the challenge is not going anywhere. I think that that would be something that we can be quite, after this discussion that we've had, I think that it's pretty clear that, you know, we're going to continue to have strain, you know, around skills and capability more than anything, like really focusing on building out that capability. I think that the traditional models are, perhaps not relevant, as much now, just as around if you want to truly build like a sustainable capability. That's certainly something that we've seen. I think that certainly thinking about the alternative pathways is incredibly important. I think whether it's veterans, career changes, or when I reference what Sia and I were doing out in the US, some of the work that we were doing was with the GED, people that were going back to study their HSC equivalent in the US and sort of helping them on a pathway. And that's been really incredibly successful, not just in, reskilling people, but actually them finding a pathway forward that they stick to. So I think that that's a really exciting way to think about it. So I do think whether you're on the, whether you're a professional looking to, I guess, up your skills in cyber, or whether you're a leader, there's a lot of actions that you can take rather than, accepting that it's a, really big problem. Is there anything else on that any of the panel had? I'm just conscious of time. I know that you guys are totally amazing and we could talk forever, and I'm sure that there's so many questions coming through that we will endeavour to answer after this meeting. But is there anything else that anyone would like to add? No?
I think, Bridget, for the people that are on the, and want to know, a lot of leaders and people that are willing to mentor. So I think mentoring is something that can give you a pathway and give you that networking that you need. And I was going to type it into the chat, but it's taking too long, so I'm going to say it instead. And it's funny how the type you attract to type. So over my career, it's perfectionistic tendencies, it's obsessive compulsive disorder, problem solvers who want to help. And if you've got those things, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what you're currently doing now, you've pretty much got a great foundation for getting into cyber. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's no, thank you for that.
I'll just add to Andrew's comments quickly. I think particularly I'm seeing it with students and people from outside of the industry as well. And maybe this is what Andrew was touching on earlier, but cybersecurity is more than just penetration testers. There is such a breadth of skills in our team. We've got everything from project managers to risk managers. We've even got a training and education team within our team as well. So we've got people who do graphic design, people that do create learning materials. So there's a huge breadth of skills that we need within the cyber realm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm really grateful. As I said, I know just how busy you all are doing quite important work to keep us all safe. So no, thank you for making the time to speak to everybody, and thank you to everybody on the call. I appreciate people wanting to find out more and proactively wanting to learn new things. So do feel free to reach out to Sia or myself. We'll be following up the meeting with our contact details, and happy to answer any questions at all that come up. But thank you again, Andrew, Dan, Nikki and Ty. We really appreciate everything that you've put into the conversation today. It's really important, and glad that you took the time to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.